official call is under review. Let's go to the monitor.
SEC football, it just means more. Now back to your favorite bearded duo, Todd and Marty.
What's up, guys? Happy New Year. It's our first show for the 2025 year. I think this is episode 41, 40-something. I don't know, but I know it's close. Hope everybody had a good New Year's. Favorite bearded duo, well, our guest Cody here is starting to slowly grow one. He's still in the baby beard, but that's beside the point. We're going to jump into these games, finish up the rest of the SEC bowl games, and get into the quarterfinal round. Before we jump into that, let's go to hear from our sponsor. Thanks again to Chuck for everything he does for us as our favorite sponsor. So, if you're watching on Facebook, whatever, the picture's a little different, but we got our fourth or fifth time local expert, I guess you could call, friend, show, whatever, Cody in with us. So let's talk about it. We're at the end of SEC play as far as bowl games and quarterfinals. Kind of, what was your overall get through with it through all the week and a half of sports?
I guess SEC wasn't as strong as we thought it was.
No, I really... Even the national media is calling, since transfer portal and NIL, that SEC really looked watered down this year, and I really can't blame them.
I agree. I was a little bit floored with the SEC's play in bowl games and quarterfinals. I mean, you've got one team right now toting the rock at the end of the weekend, so...
Yeah, that's very shocking for when we had at the beginning maybe possibly looking at 7 to 8 teams that could have made the playoff in some weird way by number-wise. But we're going to jump into it. The first game to finish up with our bowls, as we have so far, I believe it's going to be the Iowa Hawkeyes at 8-4 and the number 19 Mizzou Tigers at 9-3. This game was pretty close, and I thought, they done is a good matchup as far as Missouri and I want to call them the Hawkeyes, or not the Hawkeyes, the Iowa State. But no, Missouri really fought at the end. I thought they Brady Cook did an excellent job, 18 for 30, 287 yards and 2 touchdowns was really the main factor for Mizzou here. Big stop at the end of the ball game on 4th and 4. This was a battle all the way through the game. I mean, let's see. Iowa jumped out first early, but Mizzou chipped away. And the big defense for Mizzou made a stop at the end that really sealed this one.
Well, and if you look at Iowa's side, I mean, like you said, the game was pretty tight, especially there at the end. But Iowa, I mean, Brendan Sullivan was sitting at 14 for 18, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. But what really stands out is Kamari Moulton, 14 carries, 96 yards with a long of 38. I mean,
that was big for them. Because they really didn't have too much as far as other people being involved, as in the receiving corps. Didn't play much of effect. Nobody over 50 yards or anything like that. But this was a well-rounded ball game for the Music City Bowl in Nashville. Missouri pulls out the win, which, as anybody has listened to the show, we haven't been high on Mizzou all season, but this is about where we figured they would be or should have been early in the season, and that's where they finished 10-3, a win in the bowl game. Better luck next year as far as progressing to being that top tier team that you were supposed to be. All right, so now we're going to jump into the next one. This game was a little weird for me as far as I really didn't get to watch a whole lot of them because we were up on our honeymoon in Gatlinburg, seeing the snow and the cold and all that stuff. But South Carolina did not really look like they deserved to be here. Yes, Lenore Sellers played extremely well, 24 for 34. I can't even read my own writing. 260 yards and 1 touchdown. As the number 15 South Carolina Gamecocks take the loss 17-21 against the number ranked 29-3 Illinois. What are they?
Illinois?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Orangemen, maybe, or Fighting Illini football. But I think their thing is orange, ain't it?
It's something.
Anyway, but nonetheless, I thought South Carolina really choked this one out at the end. Only had 130 rushing yards, and I think they had 7 or 8 different people run the ball. South Carolina defense, I mean, they played hot early. They had 1 pick, some turnovers, and again, but I just, as well as Lenore Sellers played here, there wasn't enough with him to fight this one out and make as good as South Carolina look as they've been in this game. Was a close match, 15-20, both 9-3, but I don't think everybody showed up for South Carolina.
I will say the big turning point in this game was that penalty that Illinois was really looking for against South Carolina, and I think that's what fired Illinois up. Was the big discussion there was if you did not see the game on the kickoff, the returner put his arms out signaling that he was going to let the ball go over his head. Well, he ended up catching the ball and coming out, and one of Illinois' players gets hurt. That's going to be a big discussion in the referee room in the offseason. Does that become a penalty with a signal there with the arms? And, Brent Bulema and
Shane
Beamer almost got into it.
Fisticuffs.
And so that, I think, is where the turning point was for Illinois that really fired their team up. And I think that I wouldn't say South Carolina didn't show up with all cylinders. I think that there was a turning point in this game, and that's what brought Illinois out.
I could really say that was a good fact, too, because I just, like you said, with the South Carolina just didn't seem like they just had it all put together. And I think at that point in a close game like this, especially you're playing for a bowl game, for the players who still want to be there who didn't opt out, which is a silly thing to me, you're going to put it all out on the line. And I guess South Carolina ran out of juice. And when you have a momentum change like that for your players and all that, and with your 2 head coaches getting fired up, I think it was what at the end of the day gave the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl to the Fighting Oranges, Illini, or whatever they may be. So, but look, South Carolina, really good year. I think they got a lot of good things with Beamer coming for next year. Hopefully they can recruit well and be a little bit more than mid-pack as they were this year. Oh, I don't even know which one's next.
It's going to be you over there.
Yeah, I got it somewhere. So we're going to jump into another matched up game here for the Kinder's Texas Bowl. 8-4 BYU take on 8-4 LSU. And I tell you what, Baylor was all beef jerky here because they got chewed up. LSU just throttled from the beginning and really they look, I won't say the best they have all year, but Nussmeier was really stellar with 3 touchdowns, only 1 pick, 304 yards, 24 for 34. Really the score was closer because Baylor did make a run here in the later innings, later quarters to put some points on the board. But this was all LSU. There was no even getting around it because at halftime it was already 28-17, and then Baylor scored the late 2 touchdowns, one at the end of the third and at the end fourth to really give them this score. But this was pretty much one of the blowouts of the whole bowl season. Again, it doesn't look like it, but this was all LSU. I think this is a good building block right here for Kelly with this win for a bowl win. Now, we've seen Kelly struggle all year as coaching-wise and woes, but I think he does got some help coming for next year and some guys he's already got coming in. It's a good building block. I think Kelly now turns, once the year starts over, I think he bees, find good English. I think this is, I think the heat's getting turned up on Kelly this year at LSU or next coming year in 2025. So we'll see where that goes.
Well, honestly, I think he's got a starter in Nussmeier. I questioned Nussmeier earlier in the season.
Oh, I've done it more than once.
But I think that they've really turned things around. And to be honest with you, I'm probably going to get some funny looks when I say this, but I think this is one of the best looking SEC teams as far as bowl games are concerned.
Oh, most definitely.
LSU really was polished throughout the whole game, very few mistakes. And Nussmeier, just looking at him on the sidelines with Brian Kelly, you could tell that they've got a bond started. And I think that with a bond starting with your quarterback like that going into next season is really gonna turn things around for LSU.
Yeah, you take the little pieces you can grab at the end of the year to make fluidity for next year possible. And now, again, as we've talked before, as much goes into the transfer portal, the NIL, and I think that's why SEC did look so diluted this year is the craziness of college football now, which and hopefully in the coming years they'll govern it a little bit better. That's beside the point. LSU really, took this one to heart and went out and showed what they can do. So I like the win for LSU. Watching this was a pretty good ball game. I said we were up and we caught bits and pieces as we were in and out doing the mountains and the shoppings and the bears and all that good stuff. But another good program win. It's a bowl win for Brian Kelly. And next year, really, I think when we start the season, it's going to be one of our hot seat coaches. Just looking out. Long-winded already. Oh, man. So probably one of our next game.
Worst games of the SEC play.
And that's crazy to say about this team who had the high hopes as far as the 7-5 Michigan Wolverines open up were they favored in this? Or was it all Alabama?
Alabama was favored by 2 touchdowns.
Wow. As the 9-3 Crimson Tide holding up the 11th rank, just I guess you could get skimming or missing the playoffs. In this, now after all the naysayers, here we go. As far as they say, well, Alabama shouldn't have been in if they played like this. This was probably the worst game Alabama. I don't know. The Oklahoma game was probably the worst game Alabama has played all year, honestly. But this one is right there behind it.
Well, this. What do you want to know first, there, Marty? I mean,
it's not nothing. I mean,
it's one of those situations where they looked really good in warm-ups. I mean,
well, yeah, because they're warming up against themselves.
Well, I mean, when I say look really good in warm-ups, I'm talking about high energy, ready to come out and play. Talk about turning factors in the game. We're sitting in the stands and, about 4 or 5 minutes into as you can see there, it's a pretty cloudy day there in Tampa, Florida, by the way. But we're sitting in the stands and, about 5 minutes into the first quarter, we got this torrential downpour that hits. And I don't know what happened, but it was like it was a light switch in Michigan, and they just took off. Jalen Milroe comes out, fumbles the ball on the second drive, puts Alabama's defense in their own territory. Michigan takes it down, kicks a field goal. Next drive, Milroe throws an interception, puts them in their territory again. Michigan kicks the field goal. I mean, it's one of those things where our defense was lights out in this game, but our offense just could not get going. I think it took them too long, and, there was some questionable calls with Kalen DeBoer that...
you just kicked yourself in the tail in a lot of situations. I was super shocked as we were in and out of shops because we were doing our little shopping day, and as we all know, Brittany's big Alabama, and we were watching, and she just, after I think that second fumble, it was, Michigan come out. This is the hottest I've seen anybody come out in allegedly a close matchup as this was supposed to be, as far as that. But, the momentum was all Michigan the whole first half. I didn't see I mean, yes, Bama kind of tightened it up in the second and got it within, I guess, striking distance, but never really played to their full potential. Yes, the defense played stellar and kept Michigan at bay from them not scoring again, but then Alabama's offense was terrible.
Well, our defense did play fairly well, but you got to think of a problem here. You got Davis Warren as the starting quarterback. He goes 9 for 12 for 73 yards and 1 touchdown. And I will tell you this kid was playing lights out until he got hurt. You bring in the backup quarterback and
Orgy.
Yeah, Orgy, and I'm talking. He runs all over us. I mean, there was no stopping him. They ran a lot of read option with him, and I mean,
it just seemed like Alabama's defense was super confused as they haven't been as. And I know a lot of players would already had transferred because Jam had already transferred. Haynes, Justice
Haynes.
And didn't he go to Michigan or was it Ohio State?
I
think it was one of them. I'm not sure, but no. And this is what we talk about when we're talking about hurting college football is, you're not getting a full team, and that's what we didn't have everybody this, that, and other. But it's still no excuse at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it should be next man up.
Right, and that's the way in the Saban era how it always was. Is that his second and third team could beat most national championship teams that have, and this wasn't here. I think it was some. This is what a lot of people predicted as far as Alabama 9-4. Not what they wanted to see. It's not what you would consider an average season for Alabama. But that's kind of, even outside looking at it as that's what I looked at as far. And I said 9-4, maybe 8-5, just depending on. But if you at the beginning of the season, if you had thought at Milroe being a $2.1 million NIL player and, looking for the Heisman and stuff like that, I would have picked Alabama 10-1, 11-0, just things like that. But he really hurt his, I don't say he hurt his draft stock.
I think he did, honestly. Just by the way he carried himself. I mean, he carried himself with calm and poise and everything. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion alone as a fan, it doesn't mean much at all because, we're not the coaches. We're not on the sidelines. But, playing sports, Marty, you look at it kind of from a sports perspective. And I feel like, after that second fumble, he's already thrown a pick, fumbled once. I would have put Ty Simpson in just to see what he could have done.
Just to see if there was another spark somewhere else not in.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, when you get down there late in the game, you're down 6 points, you get 4th and 8, you're in field goal range. Kick the field goal because when you get back down
some kind of momentum, and if your defense has playing as decent as they were, I think it could have maybe sparked something in the offense to get a little more avidity going. But Alabama's best player really was Bernard, and I think he has been their best player all year as far as his.
And it could have been Ryan Williams too. Look, I mean, and I know we're staying on this game a little bit too long, but it's kind of different when you actually go to the game,
right?
And you see it from not just a TV perspective. Like you see everything that's going on. I think Ryan Williams would have been a big factor too. But the problem is everybody blamed the offensive line in this game. But that offensive line gave Milroe plenty of time to throw the ball.
Or fumble it, whichever one.
Yeah, or fumble it, however you want to look at it. And there was several times that he threw that fade pass down the sideline to Ryan Williams, and Ryan Williams is 5 yards past the defender, but he overthrows him.
Yeah.
And that's a factor that we've had all
Milroe, yes.
I'm not even going to say all season. I'm going to say all his career at Alabama.
See, it's all good when he's hitting them throws, but when he's constantly missing the targets 4 and 5 yards down the road. But Brittany and I did talk about it as far as with Milroe. It was, I don't know. I just think he had a lot of troubles reading the defense, which he's had all year, reading some coverage on, especially on that interception. That DB was within striking distance already, and by the time Milroe had already let it go, that DB had already broke and was heading back the other way. I think he struggles. Like I said, I'm no quarterback whisperer. It looks like he struggles reading coverage. It looks like in some of the other stuff I've watched that his stance are different. If he's in a running play, he's offsetting his feet. Just a lot of things. But this loss is not only on him; it's a team loss. We're not going to beat Miller up because we have seen he is an excellent quarterback. Now, whether he hurt his draft stock, which we think he did, but could he have hurt it even worse coming back again to Alabama?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't fault this kid. He did have grit in his eyes. He did have fight, and for him to finish out a season as strong as he did and not be a Cam Ward.
Don't get me stirred up.
And go out and just break a record and leave. That's what I'm saying. Like I got to credit the kid for his personality, and then I wish him well in the NFL.
Yeah, and like I said, hopefully, in some of the quarterbacks that left from Alabama, that's Hurts and Tua and some of the other guys that. They do transfer better into an NFL system. Like we talked about earlier, Bo Nix. Look where he's got Denver at. I think Denver is playoff bound again, which I don't keep up a whole lot with NFL, but it is what it is. So jump into, I believe this is our last game for the SEC, and there's not much to talk about. This was a blowout from elbows to buttholes. Really? Jackson Dart really put the stamp on his career at Ole Miss in the Tax Layer Gator Bowl as the Duke Blue Devils and the Ole Miss Rebels take into the matchup. I mean, Jackson Dart, electric, 27 for 35, 404 for 4 touchdowns. And you briefed exactly, but you briefed on another thing that last segment we did there about the whole Cam Ward situation. Jackson Dart did not want to come out in none of it. He did not. He did come out, I think, in that last drive. This is what drives me nuts about some of these people who sit in these high chairs on ESPN. They were even criticizing him for wanting to get back in the game and won't do BS. I don't like that. I thought it was a sham what Cam Ward done, let his team down and everything. But Jackson Dart, football through and through. He wanted to play. I think he wasn't even in for the victory formation.
We talk about a lot of times, players that are true blue bred team guys. This guy wore the Ole Miss logo and the Ole Miss uniform with pride, and he finished out his
most definitely
career at Ole Miss, I believe, on top. And I think Jackson Dart is going to be one that lives as a legacy at Ole Miss.
Oh yeah, he's definitely got the Eli Manning type legacy, the Arch Manning legacy, and the others that come. The greats that come from Ole Miss. But like I said, there's not just a ton of good stats for Duke. I mean, who's the quarterback there? Henry Braylon, the fourth?
Yeah.
25, 44, 235, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, decent numbers, but it was Ole Miss from quarter one. 14 points, 10 points, 14. So, Jackson Dart was just electric. He was having fun because this is one of the games we did get to. He was having fun with his guys, making the plays and stuff like that.
Ulysses Bentley had 14 carries for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then Jackson Dart also had 12 carries for 43 yards.
So this was a well-rounded. I mean, yes, we could have seen this blowout coming. I mean, yes, Duke has been better in the last couple of years in football, but not when you're coming up against this buzzsaw and Jackson Arnold and really tipping his cap on a great career at Ole Miss. How well it translates to the NFL, maybe who knows? I mean, that's always the thing as different quarterbacks that we've watched through the years. After just Auburn fan, because after Cam left Auburn, he had 3 really good years, won all the awards the first year, second year playoff run, third year go to Super Bowl, and then he slid off. Hurts and Pineapple. What's the other Pineapple chunker? Tua. Yeah. They've done really well. They haven't super excelled to get their team in the late games in the playoffs, but still good quarterbacks. Jalen Daniels, LSU, Burrow from LSU. They can, and I think Jackson Dart is going to be one of these guys like a Joe Burrow, but just didn't do enough here at the college level as far as making that championship. Whew. Take a small little breather here, get some parchment. So that's the end of all the SEC games as far as that we covered for. this series is in that. But now we're going to jump into the post show on the quarterfinals, which like I said, we'll try to keep it brief because I don't even know what time. I'll see what time we're running at. Okay, we're at 25. Not terrible. Not terrible. So first game, Penn State, Boise State. This, I don't say it was a shocker, but one thing I think it was you and I that did the last show that we did talk about. If Penn State can isolate Ashton Jeanty as they did, this game would be a blowout, and it pretty much was. Penn State was doing everything right. Drew Allard, let's see, slide it up there here for me. Yeah, Drew Allard, 13 for 25, 171, 3 touchdowns. And Penn State's defense, what's that? 3 sacks, 9 tackles for losses. I mean, it was overall good game. Really good game for Penn State. Probably the best they've looked all season. And not to say that Boise State is not, that shouldn't have even been here. But Jeanty was, I mean, they stuck to Jeanty like flies on paper. You know, I mean, still had 104 yards on 30 carries. And technically, if you look at it, that's a lot of carries for only 104 yards. No touchdowns. His longest was 26 yards, which we would really like to see more because that's what I thought early in the game. If Boise State was just able to make 1 or 2 plays in the backfield, they would be all right. And on the bad side of Boise State, Maddox Matson struggles. 3 interceptions, really kept giving the ball back to this Penn State offense, Drew Allard was electric in this ball game. So, I mean, it really hurt them.
Well, and I'll put this out there. I will say I don't think that offensive line for Boise State may have been as good as we actually thought that they were.
I could see that.
Or they just may have been having an off game. You know, Penn State's defense, I think, is ranked not super high, but I'd say probably in the top 20 as far as defense is concerned. But you saw a lot of different stuff from Penn State defensively that you didn't see with some of these other teams to stop Jeanty. Instead of bringing 7, they put 8 in the box, which makes it a little bit harder to block. And then you're looking at passing too. They were rushing Madsen pretty much out the gate. They would,
and I think that's what led to the 3 turnovers. They were putting so many in the box to keep attention to Jeanty and really putting the pressure on him, and he turned it over 3 times. I don't know how many turnovers led to points, but still,
Jeanty had a fumble in this game as well.
He did have a fumble. So I mean, like I said, it stinks because we all thought Boise was one of these great teams in which they had a great year. I don't take anything away from them. I think Jeanty was only a handful of yards of breaking Barry Sanders' all-time season record. So to me, still think he's deserving of the Heisman. This is not covered, but did you watch any of the, speaking of Heisman, did you watch any of the Colorado game?
I did not watch.
It was trash. Colorado got beaten. Travis Hunter, it was awful. I think they got beat by 15, 20 points. It was not a good game for Coach Prime and his ruffians in Colorado. But anyway, like I said, first game down, so Penn State moves on. And as our MVP for this game, see what his first name was?
I think it's Tyler.
Tyler won. I believe he's not linebacker. What's that other position?
He's a tight end.
Tight end, yeah. 6 receptions, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. Was really, I mean, there were other players that had 2 touchdowns, but I mean, the big man really just was getting open, making yardage when it counted. So for the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, Tyler Warren's going to take the MVP for Penn State. I think, to me, this was the biggest shocker from the post show that we had last week or for the week before. And this was super shocked as how fast this one got out of hand.
I know that we'll cover Texas and Arizona State later, which is fine. But aside from that game, This one was my favorite one, and here's why. Everybody has been talking about Dylan Gabriel and Dan Lanning all season, #1 Oregon Ducks. And to be honest with you, to see Oregon be taken down by Ohio State, there was nothing more exciting than that.
I mean, yes, I was an Oregon guy because I haven't seen anything on paper as far as them looking as out of consistency as they did this game. I mean,
And my guy, Will Howard, I warned y'all about him earlier in the season.
We did talk, and that was one of the mistakes that caused them the first game was the Will Howard. But, man, Will Howard has been electric after that game. Really deserved this one because this was, it was 34-8 at halftime. So there was no chance of Oregon really. Dylan Gabriel could not get anything. I mean, he's still 300 or almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Jordan James in the backfield, 2 yards a carry, 7 carries, 14 yards,
11 long, which is short for him.
Right. So there was no. This looked like the Oregon team that we have not seen all year. But then Ohio State looked the best I think it has all year. Really think taking their numbers up to be that potential team to win this whole thing as well as they played.
That's what I was going to discuss a little bit later, once we got into the discussing the bracket. But, Will Howard, 17-26, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the true factor here was Jeremiah Smith, 7 receptions, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns with a long of 45 yards. He told them in his press conference, I'm warning you, Oregon, do not play man coverage because I will be open. And what did he do? Open. He got open.
He was open like a Waffle House on New Year's. This kid, the first couple of drives, it was Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith. And who caught that ball? Number 4, Jeremiah Smith. And I'd walk in the kitchen and grab a drink or something and come back in. Ready. Ohio State scored again. Jeremiah Smith. These two were like peas and carrots the whole game.
And I think it wasn't until like the 3rd or 4th touchdown that Ohio State got that it was Trayvon Henderson that took it in on a 66-yard touchdown.
So, this was the most polished team, I think, of all the 4 games. Really, again, like I said, really bumped their numbers up to be the favorite to win, which I'm not the biggest Ohio State fan.
I do not like Ryan Day.
Yeah, we've said that from the beginning.
But I will tell you this: as long as they do not have a close game, the rest of the playoff, if they're blowing teams out like they did here, they'll win the whole thing.
Yeah,
but if they're in a close game, Ryan Day will choke.
Well, and like he's had against Michigan, he's 1-4 against Michigan, something like that. But again, the MVP for the Rose Bowl, definitely Jeremiah Smith. Electric day for the Buckeyes. As they cruise easy, which was a super shocker to all of us. We all had predicted this to be the really close game, but not this time. Ohio State takes it handedly. And I think this will be, is that our last game? Nope, we got 2 more.
Yeah, you got 2 more.
So now we go to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl as the first SEC team is number 5 Texas Longhorns go to Atlanta to meet the number 4 Arizona State, and probably the best game of this, which we didn't think so. We thought it would be a little bit one-sided, but it wasn't. And again, Texas in another dogfight with what looked to be a really good Arizona State team.
Well, Quinn Ewers really didn't start coming to himself until the 4th quarter, in my opinion.
Right.
That's when he started, triggering his star player in
Golden.
Well, I'm actually going to say his star receiver is going to be Gunnar Helm.
The tight end. Yeah, I've talked about Gunnar Helm all year. Has been really reliable.
Yes, he's the one that he targeted right there at the end of the game, and that's the one that got him the touchdown in overtime.
Right, and as we've talked about, but as we look at this, 2 overtimes in a playoff game is what we want to see. Texas fought, but really, and I believe in our MVP in this game was Golden. 7 receptions, 149 yards, 1 touchdown. And Ewers easily could have been this guy with 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 322 yards. But honest to God, Cody, we sit down and look at this. The real MVP of this game was Cam Scatterbrook for Arizona State. And usually...
And you would need a pen to write down his stats.
Right. And you'd probably need 2 pieces of paper. And I think even the Peach Bowl people, he was the MVP. And that's super shocking nowadays to come in a loss to be there. Because, Cam Scatterbrook, he had 1 pass for 42 yards, 1 touchdown.
30 carries for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then he had 8 receptions for 99 yards on a 62-yard long catch.
I'm just telling you, and to watch this kid, it was really good. And I hate to see him come up short. Yes, Texas does get the win, but I don't know. Click Cam's name and see what he's coming back or is. No, was a senior, so I really think in this he was one of them players that left it all out on the line for Arizona State. Really, he really come up a little bit last year, but really had a great season this year. As far as now Arizona State's done, we thought this could be a blowout game for Texas, and it wasn't. Texas did Texas thing, and they scored, I guess you would say, a lot of points, but they skimmed by on their teeth as they did against Georgia. Did they play Georgia SEC championship?
Yeah, and they lost that game.
Yes, so now I guess you could say they're battle tested for overtime. But no, now Texas is your first SEC team into the college playoff.
Now, this one did come as a shock to me.
Yeah, this game here, the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs and the number 7 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Where the Sugar Bowl? Is that Louisiana?
Yes, and I will say this, Marty, one thing that I would like to say is I would like to extend my condolences to all the people that were killed in that truck running its
terrorist attack, whatever they want to call it,
and extend my prayers to those people.
Oh, most definitely. All the families involved, and they did have some ties here. I think there was an Alabama student or a former student, and I know there was a Auburn graduate as well that were killed in that, and not just because of them that they were SC related. All lives are really to be cherished, and for some senseless act that happened, and really not that affected this ball game. It did because they moved the time, but anytime there's loss of life like that is really tragic for some nonsense. But again, thoughts and prayers for the family and everybody involved.
But now you go back to, what's shocking to me is, Gunnar Stockton, he played lights out against Texas, and I thought that Texas defense was a lot better than Notre Dame's, in my opinion.
Georgia. You said Texas.
Yeah, because...
Okay, I see where you're going.
You see where I'm going now?
I see where you're going.
But, yeah, I thought that, Texas's defense was a lot better than Notre Dame's, but, games can prove you wrong, Notre Dame came out lights out against Gunnar. They really had him tied down, and I think, it was a slow start for him. He did try to get rolling late, but just could not connect.
And I think that's what you and I talked about in the last show is how big effect that Carson Beck not starting would take on Georgia. And I believe you said that he was battle tested, like that he did look good in the SEC championship. But I don't think, him coming in and playing a half compared to a whole game in a national quarterfinal game, I think it took a toll on him. But Notre Dame was ready for it.
Well, and another thing that I'm looking at too that I did not pay attention to really a whole lot in the game, but now it stands out when you look at stats after the game is, they really locked down Trevor Etienne in this game too.
It looks like the whole backcourt.
Yeah, 11 carries for only 38 yards, and only 8 on the long.
And Nate Frazier 4 for 37. This is shocking numbers for the Georgia team, who's been really good in the running game. But you think at 29 carries for 66 yards, that is shocking for this Georgia for this Georgia line. I mean, nobody over 38 yards. I mean, you had Gunnar Stockton ran the ball 10 times, but he was minus 19 yards, so that's not good for your average. But Notre Dame's defense really picked up a lot. You scroll up. Here we go. 4 sacks, 9 tackle for losses was really putting the pressure on Stockton, which Cody and I, as you talked about, was going to be their biggest thing. But I don't think that it left a lot, because just as much as they were stopping, they were scoring, they were holding Georgia to field goals or one long field goal and one long touchdown. Where did Georgia's touchdown come from? Oh, Stockton did throw it to Cash Jones. And Arian Smith did not play as well as he had. Now, he has struggled last. He played good in the SEC championship, and I think that comes back to the whole Beck situation. So this game was a little shocking, but it's not super shocking that we didn't really talk about it with Stockton being out, or Beck being out and Stockton stepping in. But Riley Leonard on the other side, Notre Dame really did, I won't say a stellar game, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, and 15 for 24.
Where they really stood out was on the ground. 14 carries for Riley Leonard, 80 yards with a 32 along, and then Jadarian Price was 10 carries for 37 yards, and then Jeremiah Love 6 carries for 19 yards. I mean, they had 154 on the ground.
Yeah, and that's, I won't say now that we have seen Georgia's defense struggle at times this year, but this was shocking for them to only have 66 rushing yards and then let Notre Dame just kind of punch them around. I mean, they didn't have their way with them, but still, for 154 yards is a lot. So that eliminates Georgia from another SEC championship team winning. Yes, but I mean, the MVP for this game was not one person. I mean, it really for me had to be the special teams for Notre Dame. Their field goal. Their kicking team was excellent. They didn't miss. They was 100% on field goals and extra points. 3 for 3, 2 for 2 extra points, and the awesome 98-yard. I was trying to see if it was on there.
I don't know.
Yeah, scroll to the bottom.
Oh yeah, it's all the way at the bottom. There it is. Jaden Harrison.
Harrison. I mean, 98 yards. One of the coolest plays I had seen this weekend. He punt and he took off, and once he had daylight, he was gone. Oh, the punt was cute off. Whatever it was still electric. I thought, special teams does play a lot in these bowl games. And here, I think it was the biggest factor as far, because field goals, there was already 9 points in field goals. And then to hit your extra points, Notre Dame really kind of was fairly rounded. I think they could struggle later on once they play a better team and a well-rounded quarterback. If they make it to the finals where they're looking at Will Howard or somebody like that, could be deadly.
Well, and one thing that I do want to point out just briefly is if you look at it, every single team that was on a bye week lost in this round.
Right.
They were 0 for 4 on bye weeks.
Yeah. Brittany pointed that out. And then it was, I don't think the bye weeks hurt the teams, or did it expose the teams who were the number 1 seeds? I mean, yes, it's a little bit different, I think, with Georgia because the quarterback situation with Beck. But, 0-4 for the bye teams, and I think that would come a lot to, Alabama should have been in there, or SMU. That goes again to all this numbering. And
this is not an argument, but this is just an example too. Could it be, do they look at a different bracket system, where like a team like Boise State shouldn't have been on the bye week,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot for the committee. All right, guys. Well, so we're right at 45 minutes. We can probably get a few more things in, but next show is going to be the semifinals. Let's just take a quick look at it. I mean, nothing super huge. College football plus semifinals is going to have Notre Dame and Penn State and Oklahoma.
Ohio State and Texas.
Will Howard, Quinn Ewers. I think that's going to be an outstanding matchup with that Texas defense against Jeremiah Smith. Riley Leonard and who is Penn State quarterback?
Penn State's quarterback.
Anyway, but like I said, I'm glad you can just laugh at me. These are good. Cotton Bowl, and I think the other is the Gator Bowl. Not Gator Bowl. I can't know. It's late already.
Capital One Orange Bowl.
The Orange Bowl. So really good games. We'll get into them, get them broke down, and get that one out to you. Who was Pins at Allard?
That's what I'm trying to. It will not go over the box. There it goes. Drew.
Okay, all right. So that was just a quick rundown for the semifinal show. Kind of getting close to wrapping it up. I believe LSU was our last team in the best all-time SEC logo, and the winner of it was the 1955 Old Tiger Head with a tilted sailor cap on, which has that style has won 2 or 3 times in there. I think it won the Auburn, and I still think there's a few more that has been in there. So as it moves on, who was Mississippi State is our next team. Wasn't a whole lot.
I like number 2.
There was, I think, for if you're watching on YouTube or whatnot, I'll break them down. Number 1 is like a old style Mississippi State holding up a pennant flag with state on it. Number 2 is more of a bulky bulldog walking across. Number 3, I think early 90s was this the MSU in interlacing letters. And now their current logo is the maroon M with the state sign. There were different variations of 3 and 4, so I just kind of combined them. Could be fun. I'll get these out sometime today or maybe tomorrow so we can go ahead and get them voted on. I do like number 2, Cody. I like it's kind of a cartoon kind of deal. Mm-hmm. But the old school in me still likes the number 1 with the flag. I'm not sure who I'm going to vote for. But fans, go ahead and vote. We've done so good. I think we're about midways through the teams that we have left in this, and then we'll come down with a bracket. And then the off season, we'll get more into the tournament. So, and we just again want to thank all our fans, of course.
Thanks for making the call to go under review. Join us next time as we go to the monitors. Until then, keep your flag handy.